Well, thank you, everyone. I was just saying to Ton earlier, and also for Johan, because I've been with VMware, 11 years almost? And I joined from Symantec a long time ago, and I remember the first ever time I came over to do a VMUG. So I'd been used to doing a couple of VMUGs in the UK. I joined as a systems engineer, and I got in there, and there was a big show outside. I thought, okay, fair enough. And then I asked, I think it was at the time, it was one of the colleagues you may know, Raymond, that I used to work with, who's since left VMware, but we still keep in contact a little bit. And I said to him, so where's the room then? Where am I going to present? So I can't, and he said, oh, it's over there. So I just assumed it was a little small room. I kind of opened the door, and there was like 800 seats sitting there. And then that's when I realized that the biggest VMUG was in Holland, and it seems like today, same thing here. You guys, look at this. I think when we first did it, we said 30 or something like that, and then it's like 100 odd. So, number one, thank you for all coming, because it's brilliant, and hopefully you're going to enjoy what I've got to talk about. But yeah, Chief Technologist, been 10 plus years desktop at VMware, VDI originally, and before that, my whole world was desktop. So I've got, 20 odd years of... Yeah, I just about remember yellow and blue cables, parallel and serial cables with lap links. So that kind of gives you an idea of, see if anybody actually, yeah, there's a couple of smiles at that point. So that's how I judge the age of the audience, is mention some technologies from certain eras and you can find out what's going on. So what am I going to do today then? So I've got a bit of an agenda here. I probably won't do this in time, and if I do, I've probably spoken at 58 billion miles an hour. So hopefully that works. And I noticed that everything was in Dutch, so I apologize for my Dutch is not up to scratch today, but hopefully you can all understand everything that I say. So what I'm going to do, give you a bit of intro, what we're seeing in the market, why we think the time is right now for a buzzword, I apologize for that as well, which is digital workspace, but I'm going to give you a bit of a spin of what I'm seeing on it as well. I guess a look into what we're trying to do with the digital workspace. Why do we think it's important? What does VMware think about that, right? And a bit of, I guess, perspective on when I'm out in front of partners and customers around Europe. Because I look after Europe. I was in Switzerland the other day, and I got some stories about some stuff that I did over there as well. Not so many mountains I noticed today when I got over here, by the way. So, yeah, there's some lovely views, and it's still some lovely views, by the way, but just not big views in the background. And then I thought what I'll do is I'll give you some updates on what we did at VMworld. Anybody come to VMworld Europe this year? Oh, okay, quite a few. So did you come to Sumit's Keynote? Okay, so a little bit on that. So apologies for some repetition, but there might be some extra new bits in there as well. And then a little bit about what we've done internally with VMware around Workspace ONE. So that's kind of the agenda. Probably haven't got time to do questions right here, but maybe if we've got a little bit of time at the end, I'll take some questions, and if not, you can come and grab me afterwards. I'm not here all day, but I'll try and be up, I think it's till about lunchtime or something. So feel free to come and grab us after that. Kind of make sense? Is that what you wanted? Well, I say is that what you wanted, you haven't heard it yet, but hopefully it is what you want. So, you've seen this slide before, so I know it's a cliche saying that everybody's talking about digital enterprise, or in specifically digital workspace. For us, what it means is, if I go back, say, okay, I'm going to recount my history here, but typically IT used to deliver to kind of admin functions, back-end office type functions. Really IT, and especially when I was starting off, it was you got to work, you sat at a desk, there was a PC, right? And that's kind of what IT used to look after. They used to look after that kind of people sitting in an office. Now what we're seeing, of course, is there's a lot of people out in front of customers, out in front of direct customers, like in a shop, as an example. The doctor is a classic use case that we've all loved and known, especially around virtual desktops. Also, things like when you're out on site. Maybe it's up an oil rig. Maybe it's delivering plans to be built at an engineering site. Maybe it's just somebody, a salesperson that's on the move. The reason I put this up here is because this is what we do every day now. This is regular. The shift of how we used to deliver IT to this end user person sitting in an office, now we're starting to give devices to people that never necessarily had them before. So a good example is we've got a customer, not sure if I can say the name, but let's just say that they sell trainers in a shop. Let's put it that way, right? So back in my day, I'd used to go to the shop. I'd say I'm a size 9, which I think is 42 Europe, I think, something like that. And the guy would disappear behind, go and have a look behind the curtains, come back 10 minutes later while you're sitting there going, what do I do in the shoe shop at this point? Maybe there's a seat there. And they go, no, sorry, I haven't got your size. And you kind of go off, and right? That's kind of what we used to do. Now these guys are saying, right, go up to them, Right in front of you, they have an iPad. Yeah, everyone's got to have an iPad in retail. Seems to be the acceptable way of doing things. But anyway, they can look real time on that application delivered to that iPad, whether it's virtual or whether it's native mobile, it doesn't really matter. Point being, though, is that they can say, right, yeah, we've got your size, and by the way, we've also got different color options, and we're doing this special thing right now, and we can actually change the way that that trainer looks and feels, and maybe we can emboss it with your own personalized. So you see the point now, which is we change from, yes, we've got it, there it is, to actually, it's a different retail experience completely, and we can change the way that we're delivering end services. This one's the classic one, and if we haven't heard of this one, we probably haven't been in the industry that long, but we've been doing clinical, I guess, changing the way we deliver end services to patients for years now. And the classic one was we had a PC sitting in the corner, we'd come up to it, we typically would leave it logged on, and we'd leave it logged on because we didn't want to have all that waiting time as a doctor or a nurse trying to get to the patient care record system. So being able to change the way that we deliver apps directly to the doctor or the nurse in front of the patient's been, it's been a big thing for a long time, and I'm sure you guys must have seen that before. We're doing some really exciting things actually with this guy in the corner, not him specifically. I don't recognize him, but I know we're doing some work with some petrochem companies. I'll leave it at that, who they are. But let's just say that they need to do some work up an oil rig. And let's just say that trying to look at some schematics while you're halfway up, 50 foot up in the, or should I say 50 meters for the European crowd here, but you're up here and you're trying to actually do some work. Having to actually look at stuff with your hands while you're trying to balance is not really doable. So they've got some wearable type devices where the schematics are being put directly to that set of glasses, so they don't actually have to take their hands out of their pockets or get their device out or authenticate, etc. So we're doing some really interesting things about these people at the end that are now starting to consume services. Kind of make sense? You must see this, right? People that didn't used to have, I have got a phone in there, this thing are now being given these things. And the point is, how do we make that secure? How do we make it a really good experience and at the same time, really easy to use? So that's kind of where we're going with Workspace, and that's our view on digital workspace. Myself, if this actually goes forward, this is my home life. So I have a dog walker. I'll make no bones about this. It's not because I'm lazy, it's because I'm over here, and my missus had 3 kids, and so do I. And sometimes we have a dog walker. Do you have dog walkers? It's quite a big thing in the UK, right? So my dog walker, traditionally, what he would do is he'd come along and he'd knock on my door, and the dog would come out, and I'd maybe get a text to let me know that he's done the dog walking. I've worked with him on a mobile app that he's now getting put in. And what's happening now is, so this is Jeremy, this is my dog. Actually, there's a UK thing here. You guys won't get this joke, but back in the 80s, there was a program called Beadle's About, and his name was Jeremy Beadle. So he's called Jeremy Beagle. But it's a UK thing. You'd have to have seen it before. I don't think it translated here. One UK person in the top right corner is laughing. Anyway, so this is him before his walk, and this is him, yes, after the walk, somewhat chillaxed, shall we say. But the point here is my dog walker has worked out that the way to actually differentiate in the market is to have a digital offering. Sounds cliche again, but he's got this app. So what happens now is I'll get an actual notification. It started off with a website you could go in and track exactly when you book your dog walk. But there's so many dog walkers in the UK now, he has to differentiate. And the way he's differentiated is by making this mobile app. And that's the point here, which is to survive in business now, you need to do something different to supply those end services to your users. That's my example. Jeremy's very happy. I think he's even looking at a GPS locator on his thing so I can track real time what's going on with his dog walk. I'm not so interested in that, if I'm honest with you, but he thinks it's quite cool. And you can have a mobile app and you can actually search for it. But it's just an example of how something so mundane like a dog walker is becoming so competitive that you need to do something different. I was going to use the Uber example, but I thought that might have been done to death. So anyway, so that's my personal example. So what are we seeing then also in the market? So this thing here, right? Always on culture. The two kind of go together in terms of anytime, anywhere. So sadly, again, when I wake up in the morning, I'm not sure if you guys do this. If you do, don't worry. You don't have to raise your hands and say you do, but you may agree with me. First thing I pretty much do is turn the light on. Maybe I don't even do that. I get my phone. Do? Yeah. So there are some there, yeah? And I'm like, okay, so I'll pretend to check the time so my missus doesn't know that I'm doing this. But I look at my emails. I think it's pretty much the first thing I do, right? So when was that the case back, 10, 15 years ago? You didn't do that. So this notion of always on, 9 till 5, does not exist anymore. And there is this whole thing about whether it's encroaching on work-life balance. But really, actually, I like that. My most productive time for me personally, because I have the choice to do this with VMware, is in the morning when I first wake up. After coffee, I get a bit better as well. But, first thing in the morning, I kind of look at my emails. And I'm going to come back to that notion later on, because we're doing a load of interesting stuff around how do we make it when you get up in the morning, even when you're half asleep, that time that you spend when you first get your phone out, or mobile device, whatever your chosen poison, how do we make this as productive as possible? How do we make this the best experience for your end users and your customers? Okay. The other thing we're seeing is contracts. I'm a bit of a, well, in VMware at least anyway, I've been here, 10 and a half years. We're seeing a change from these long-term employees like myself to short-term contracts, right? I don't know if you guys are seeing this. So the concept of a long-term employee that's here for years and years and years is becoming less and less and less. We're moving more to short-term contracts and employees that come in for 6 months, leave, or do whatever, right? So what does that mean for you guys? When you deliver services to them, everything we used to do is all based on the fact you're going to be here for a long time. We give you a device. Maybe that device is 3 years on the asset register list. And you kind of assume that that's going to be with that person for a long time, right? But when you start looking at contractors and short-term contracts for employees, it changes the notion of what you do. So we need to think about it. And the reason why I'm saying this is these are the kind of considerations that I think this new digital workspace and how you deliver services to your end users, that's the things we need to look at. And of course, we wouldn't be complete without saying, bring your own tools, bring your own device. That's been around for a long time, I know, but I think we're finally at the point where this is starting to become more and more relevant. And if I don't go into a customer where they're talking about this, or at least exploring it, whether they're ready to do it or not is another thing, but I'm pretty sure most people are saying, in order to get new people into the business, attract new talent, one of the things that HR and the CIO is saying is, I want to have the ability to at least give choice to the end user about what device they use. Are you seeing that? There's a lot of pressure. Now, I know in some industries it's never going to happen. See, if you're in the military, for instance, bringing your own iPad to launch nuclear weapons, I guess that's not going to really happen. But there is in some verticals the ability to say, right, maybe you have a choice. In VMware, we have COPE. You've heard of COPE? Corporately owned, personally enabled. So you have a choice, but then you can still run it for some of your personal type activities as well. Although we still lock down certain things that are specific to VMware. And again, no other slides will be complete without an Amazon Echo. Maybe it should be a Google Mini now or something. I think Vodafone have also released something recently as well. But the point here is we're starting to get into another world, which is not just the end user, but it's IoT. And again, another buzzword for you there. But clearly, I say clearly, hopefully you know that VMware is getting into extending the device management piece, not just from wearables that are really accessed through the phone, but actually looking at IoT-type devices, edge-type devices. And all of these things we're starting to see. So hopefully that kind of sets the scene for you. I've used this slide quite a few times, and if you see me present, I still want to get rid of it, but I can't feel that there's a better slide for it, so I'm going to use it again. So apologies for those that see that. That was me 10, 15 years ago. Right? This is what I used to do. I used to work for part of Bank of New York as well. And this is how I used to manage PCs. Now, maybe you guys can put your hand up if you want to do, sort of say if you see any different here. But my world was all about, you made a PC, and the first thing you did is you joined the domain. As soon as you joined the domain, you could apply policy. And if you applied policy, you could lock down the machine. So IT was happy. We've secured the device. What happened before that, you kind of didn't really care about too much, other than the fact you needed to get an image down there. Kind of made sense? But the first thing you did was join the domain. So the whole world that we've grown up with is about domain joined. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to suggest we don't join a domain for servers and things like that, right? But now, if I want to deliver that to, say, a contractor, if a contractor comes in with his own device, is he really going to want me to join his machine to the domain? Probably not. So where I'm going with this is, this was all designed for, it was corporate owned, it kind of didn't really move that much, and then we started to get laptops and it did change a bit. But everything's been all around this, agreed? That we manage it via IT. So the new world where we think we're going to, which is going to take a while, which is why we've got a bridge, because everyone's going to have their own journey. Got to have a journey statement in there. But the point here is we move to a more EMM-style, enrollment-based way of managing devices. And also we kind of say, well, do I trust Spencer? So we start to get into identity. And then we think there's a world where if you merge the two, you get a better way of giving the right access at the right time on the right device and a better experience to the end user. but it's all about how we potentially move over. Now, it may be that some things never move from this side, and it may be some things, if you're very, very new, VMware as an example, we don't have much Windows-type devices. So we've taken a while to get this stuff over, but actually it wasn't that bad for us because we didn't have lots of VDI, lots of published apps. We did have some for call centers and back-end admin tasks, but we didn't have many things like apps that are Windows apps. So for us, most of our things are mobile apps, SaaS apps. So it's been easier for us to get over here. But everybody in VMware now is on Workspace ONE. And then everybody will talk lots and show you lots about this. So if you haven't seen it, go and have a word with these guys. It's a fantastic experience. But the only thing that's stopping us get to this new world, what is that? Anybody care to think? What's stopping us from go here to over there today? Thank you. Yeah, it's exactly what it is, right? So, and the reason why that's important then is some people think, well, is VMware just focusing on this new world only? We are, because that's where we think it's going to, but we still have to manage this stuff. This stuff isn't going away anytime soon. I still remember doing mainframe Kix programming. The grey hair sort of gives it away. I do remember 8.5-inch disks, just about, and print jobs that used to run overnight and batch jobs. And we still got mainframes, right? They haven't gone away. Okay, they've got less, but they're still there. And in the same way, PCs, I don't believe, are ever going to disappear. The nature of how we use them may change, but the apps potentially will sit there for a while. And not everybody's got the luxury of SaaSifying, if that's such a word, or modernizing all their apps. So we still need to look after both. And I think that's what we're saying with Workspace ONE is you need to present that so it looks new to the end user, but at the same time, you need to have this new way of going to manage them. So kind of makes sense? That's what we're talking about with Workspace ONE. And then also on top of this, we need to make it intelligent, another buzzword for you. But the point there is that, okay, so we know that the workspace is lots of devices. I think everybody, when we say the digital workspace, agrees that there's going to be lots of devices. We want to make it not just easy to use, but intelligent. So we understand how the user's working, we understand the nature of where the devices roam to, the nature of the security, and we can start it or put in some, how can we put it, trending and some machine learning, if you like, to understand how is the best way to deliver these apps in the most secure way. So you're going to see a lot more from VMware around how we change this, not just to a platform to manage, but also intelligence into the platform as well. So that's kind of where we're going with it as well. Okay, this, I pretty much, when I said I was at Switzerland the other day, I put this up, and I think 95% of what I put up, this person that I was in front of the CIO said, yeah, we got that, we're moving to Office 365, we've got a custom MDM solution, we've got our homegrown IDP that we've made from 15 years ago, we use SCCM for managing physical PCs, we have got your competitor in terms of app publishing, and we've got a bit of VDI, but we've got a best of breed for absolutely every single thing, and we've stitched it all together with lots of blood and guts and sweat and homegrown scripts from the guy that still sits in the corner, and if he dies, then we've probably got an issue. You know, it's right. So we think, okay, well, that sounds a bit weird. What you really need to do is say, well, you can't do this properly unless you have a platform, right? Because we've looked at it as silos, haven't we? And it's the same when I was going through IT. I was the desktop guy, and then we had the mobile guys in between, probably come from facilities. We're seeing the world's moving where we start to see end-user computing departments, but we still see silos of management. Kind of makes sense there? Yeah, we're seeing a lot of this. So we think fundamentally to do this properly, you need a platform. And guess what the platform is? It's Workspace ONE. Well, from VMware's perspective, maybe others would profess to have another platform, but from our perspective, it's Workspace ONE. And the simple mantra is, I should be able to get an app, a device, get in, consumer simple. What does that mean? Well, if you need a manual to get your phone out to install an app to do something, it's not worked. Right? If I need to read how to install or operate or do something, that's not consumer simple. My 3-year-old, I say my 3-year-old because she's now, well, actually he's 4, so it's not my 3-year-old. My 4-year-old then, all right? Everyone uses their kids can use their phone, but that's the acid test, isn't it? If they can't do what they need to do and the kid can't do it, then probably it's not fit for purpose. So everything that we try to do on this platform is user experience, but at the same time, you guys need to secure it. And there's always this balance, isn't there? If I give loads of people freedom what to do and it's really super simple, maybe it's not so secure. And trying to get that balance right, I think, is the issue here. So we think we've got that with Workspace ONE. Controlled freedom is what we like to call it. So we give the impression that it's freedom for the end user, but it's within a certain boundary. So we're still securing that. We're just giving them more freedom than what they used to. And the other thing you're going to hear us talk a lot more about, and I'm sure you're going to see lots of things in the IT press around this, is this concept of unified endpoint management. So I know that the homeland of all UEM products as you previously knew it, i.e. User environment managers, I know there's a heartland of people that have come from that world here, lots of companies, right? So we don't mean that one in this case. We need UEM. So if you hear us talking UEM, the industry term now for UEM is Unified Endpoint Management. And at the heart of that is I should have one thing to manage Macs, Windows, iOS, Android, Linux, Chrome, etc., right? So, because that's what we've been looking for from IT. If I go back again, I'll keep mentioning this, 15, 20 years ago when I was looking after Windows 3.1 I started off with and a bit of OS2 Warp, that is going back, but yeah, used to look after that for a bit. We wanted one platform, didn't we? We wanted one management platform. So the world told you, one thing, one management way, one image, one set of apps, lock it down, the world's happy. And then users came in and wanted other stuff and made it all a bit annoying. But the point here is we've now got specialist products for Mac management, ones for iOS, Android, Windows, etc. And our point is bring it all together under one banner. So that at the heart of it is good user experience, but unified endpoint management. Hopefully you're seeing that as well. So anybody not got Macs in their departments or in their customers? Or is it like relegated to the top echelons or the mobile app developers? Because a lot of the time I'll go in and a customer will say, but we're Windows, we're only Windows. Yeah, they're the Windows ones that you know about potentially, right? There are other things out there. And yes, you could go down this kind of moldable platforms, but we think now's the time to give you guys choice to say that you can have Macs, you can have Chrome OS, etc. So what does it all look like then? So this is my eye chart. I'm not going to go for the whole thing here, but the point is, as an end user, I shouldn't really care where I come in from, what the app type is, whether you've got traditional apps that you already have. I shouldn't really care about the platform. And it should ask me some questions about who I am and understand the context of me, but also the context of where I'm coming in from the device. And then ultimately, we can build in intelligence around that to make that the most optimized solution. And it really should be looking after everything that's end-user computing, pretty much. I mean, it is one of the most broadest solutions that I can think out there in the market. So that's kind of the top level. So, what do we think it should be? Our simple goal when we started designing this, it should be, when I get this out the box, whether this is iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, I should be able to be up and running in this in the space of minutes. So that's simply what it should be. And there was a demo, I think, of 2 years ago where Sanjay Poonen, who used to run now EUCBU, he gets out the phone, unwraps it, and he's up and running in minutes. That fundamentally is the premise that we're looking for all devices for end users, right? Which changes the game of how we used to manage things. Because typically, stuff used to come to the office, IT would build it, and then they'd ship it out to the end user, right? It's kind of how we've always done things. The change now is that maybe you should just send it directly to the end user, or the user doesn't even come to you, they just buy it from the app store, from the Apple store, or they just buy it from PC World, or whatever your local electronics retailer is. Can that make sense there? Anybody not seeing this? Anybody not being asked for this? I should just be able to buy whatever I want, and then I should be able to start using it. And of course, once you've got it up and running, I want multiple devices, so it should look the same across all devices. So anybody not seen Workspace ONE at this point? Because when I put this slide up, everyone's like, yeah, well, we've seen this. But it's just really to illustrate the fact that we have it today, but it should look the same across all devices. That's what we think, and that's what our customers are telling us. Now, internally, we all do this, and there's a risk-reward that comes up, which is, I want it to be simple, but in order for it to be simple, I have to let IT do certain things to my device. So we have a choice. If we want to keep putting in two-factor authentication or MFA-type tokens, then great, we don't have to enroll our device. If we want single sign-on, easy access, we choose whether we enroll a device. But it's all done by the user. And if we do that, then the only thing we need to get in is just our thumbprint on an iOS device. Right? We just get single signed on. So it's a risk-reward. But the user experience is brilliant, right? We don't need to worry about, okay, I'm on this bit, or I need a VPN in, or I need my RSA token, or whatever. It's just a choice that the user makes. But once they've done that, it's self-service, simple, and it's single sign-on. Again, lots of cliche buzzwords at that point, but hopefully you get the notion. So, a couple of things that we'll be getting into later on. Where we think the market is at is the point where most people say that they've got some kind of flexible work policy. Anybody not have a flexible work policy? Unless you're in a vertical where clearly you need to administer stuff at the point and you can't change, but most people now have some kind of, I can go home and access email, work from home. Is that fair to say in the Netherlands as well? Okay, so the next bit to that is this digital workspace. So I think most people agree that we're at this digital workspace point. That's fine. So that's unified endpoint management, single user experience, portal-like experience. What we now want to do, and this is where a lot of the focus is going now, is to say, right, you've got that platform, let's make the user experience better. Let's increase productivity. So when you get your phone out, let's make your, I don't know, every time that you go to sign something off or every time you go to approve something, let's make that as quick as and easy as possible. So a lot of the things we announced at VMworld are about making the end user more productive with workflow automation, but from the end user side, or integration with the likes of Concur, Jira, Salesforce, etc. And then going forward, it's more about the security aspect around intelligent access. So we think we've got the digital workspace. Clearly, we need to do and evolve that further, but we're starting to get into this automated, self-remediating, self-learning, lots more buzzwords, way of understanding what the platform's doing. I told you I'd talk fast, didn't I? So, anybody not know that we have an exclusive relationship now with Google? Because this is one of the things we announced at VMworld. And when I say that exclusive relationship around Chrome OS management. So, anybody looking at Chrome OS? Okay, right. So, typically you'd need the Chrome OS Enterprise Management Solution. So, what we've done is we have direct API integration in now, so you can access and manage all Chrome OS through the unified endpoint management, which is our AirWatch platform, right? Clearly, we love Apple. We've got a really good relationship with them. We don't quite have an exclusive. They do recommend other products. You probably know what they are for Mac management and the other one for MDM, but there's not many that Apple will go on publicly record to say that they're actually recommend. And Microsoft is an interesting one. We love them in equal doses, potentially, as we don't like them sometimes, depending on who we talk to in the business. So we love them for Windows management, right? We've done a lot of work. We put all the EMM capabilities into Windows 10. We worked with Microsoft for like 2 years plus. We love them for things like Skype for Business, for VDI, because they help us do that. But then there's things like Intune. So sometimes we compete, sometimes we augment. Because we always get asked out there, why are you better than Microsoft? I'm sure somebody in your business, if it's not just you, has said, don't I get all this stuff in the EMS suite? And don't I get Intune for free and all this stuff? And what about Office 365 and DLP controllers and Open Graph? All of that love. Anybody had that discussion? No one's nodding their head. I'm being very sarcastic at that point. Hey, yes. Yes, maybe there's a SmackDown request for Intune. No, I'm joking, yeah. So, kind of touched on this before, but everybody in VMware, they've got access to their devices within the hour. This is the bit where I think is more interesting, though, where you get your phone out, and I'm going to hopefully show you some demos on that later on, okay? But also a single place across all devices to establish policies, and contextual. So we understand that if you log on at this place, on this device, and it's you, we can do something different if you log on another device that isn't enrolled, or it isn't you at a certain time. We can start to do some granular determination about what's the best way of doing this. So here's a quick demo if you haven't seen it. This is out the box. So the idea here is user gets a device. iOS is clearly the easiest one to show here. This isn't me doing this. I'm clever, but I'm not that clever. It's a video. But the idea here is when they first go in, they get asked about, what department you're in. And they get this. This is important. So it was their own device, first of all. As soon as they start to click onto services that require extra security, they get told that they need to enroll the device. But when they go to enroll it, they get prompted to say, we can't do this, we can't look at your text messages, we can't see your GPS location, we can't look at your photos, honest. And then you get then a choice to say, is it corporate or is it, personally enabled? And then, based on that, we get to accept whether we want to allow it. So remember the days you used to join a company and you got an IT form that said, I hereby say that anything I do on this machine, etc. That's kind of the same thing here. And then we get to install the lovely iOS profile or Apple profile here. But once they're in, then they can then get full access to all their apps. So that's the kind of in space of 30, 40 seconds, you're up and running. Here now, we're starting to suggest the apps that the user might want. So, and the reason why that's interesting is because going forward, the analytics side of things, we could say, well, you're in finance. We understand that most of your colleagues all use this particular app. Would you like to use that app? It's corporate policy, you're allowed it. So we could start to suggest the most commonly used apps and the things that people may like. And then once they're in, of course, then they have full access to all their apps. And that should look exactly the same, whether that's Apple, whether that's Chrome, whether that's Windows, and that's where we're going to, a full out-the-box type experience that could have been given to you by IT, or it might have just been you doing it yourself. Kind of make sense? So we think that's one of the nicest experiences in the market. And of course, this platform, it doesn't care what the app type is. We should be able to deliver all these apps in one place. This is a bit of an eye chart, and I'm not going to go into it. You probably need to come back and ask more, but this is to say that now we're at this point where you could choose whether you do or don't want to use existing physical management tools. Yes, I did say that. So there's this big thing in the market right now, you must have this. Who uses SCCM? Okay, or Landesk or Tiris, but traditional ways of physical PCLM type tools. You must be having this debate right now about when you go Windows 10, how do I manage it? Is anybody having that debate? No one's having it. No one's having it. Okay, right. Okay, well, what I'm seeing is some people are saying, do I do it old school way? And when I say old school, traditional, well-trusted, lockdown, worked. We've been doing it for years, but it's kind of on the left-hand side of the bridge. Or do we do this route, which is, actually, we don't care about images anymore. I'm going to go on record here. Imaging, as you used to know it, is dead, which is quite funny because there's a lady in our department who looks after our mobile deployments called Imogen, and I keep going out on record saying imaging is dead, so she's getting quite annoyed. That was for you, Sarah. Anyway, point being is that now we could potentially do everything. I say that potentially because there's going to be some specific, maybe scripting, some customizations. But we think we're at the point now where you can do like-for-like type PCLM management of Windows 10, albeit in a slightly different new way, right? So we've got integration now with the likes of Dell, and it's coming with HP as well around BIOS management. So even before you get to the point where you've laid down the image, we can start to control what's going on. We're even to the point where we can now start downloading. So I think last week we announced this service where you can get an image from the cloud through Dell. And we're also doing some other work we announced at VMworld around HP on that as well. All right, so just as you do, if anyone's got a Mac, I'm pointing to this isn't a Mac, but I have a Mac. But when you kill the Mac, you kind of log on, you start to then get the, the recovery partition, and you can then download the image from Mac. You've seen that, right? From the that's exactly the same kind of thing that we're looking into, and we released with Dell the other week. Also to the point where now we can suck in every single ADMX file, so all your GPOs can now come into AirWatch. We released it as a fling, but quite important. And also an MSI import or package import tool for SCCM. I don't know if you guys saw that. All right, that's pretty cool, right? So now you can say, all my packages I used to manage before, plus all my GPOs, and I can do all the over-air EMM management. I think we're kind of at the point now where there is a real, actually, we could do everything we used to do, but in this new way. That's what I think, and I'm seeing a lot of customers that are ready to make that move. I don't know if you guys are looking, if you haven't known about that, then it might be worth having a look at it now. And of course, the big thing is around patch management. How do you do patches? So we announced a relationship, sorry, one slide too quick there. This was the Dell stuff, by the way. This is the concept of what I was saying before, which is this is how we used to do stuff. This is the point now where you could say it comes directly from the factory, directly to the end user. The user logs on, and then everything's configured over the air. Because this is how we used to do it. Oh, I'm almost falling backwards. But that's kind of an extension of it. But we announced Chromebook management, but we also announced the fact that we've got a relationship with Adaptiva. Anybody come across Adaptiva? Let's go back first, because I've skipped too many slides there. Right, so if you're doing large, let's say PCLM type deployments, you used to have distribution points or other flavors of the same thing, right? So Adaptiva, and there was another company called Nomad, or 1E Nomad, that could plug into SCCM, and you could kind of ease the bandwidth controls around if you had lots of different offices. So what we've done recently is we've actually teamed up with Adaptiva with their one-site product, and it means that we can start to do peer-to-peer type distribution, combined with a CDN i.e. content distribution network. So if you're roaming around the world, the user will download the nearest file, get it down onto their machine, and if they're in a network where other people share the same, you can start to do peer-to-peer distribution. So the point there is that we then alleviate that need for distribution servers. So that was another thing that every time I'd go to an SCCM customer or a PCLM customer, yeah, but we've got enterprise network, and if you're going to send down 3 gig Office 365, how do I send that to 10,000 people without having distribution servers, etc.? So hopefully what you're seeing here is we've tried to fix all those little gaps that were all blockers for people to move from that old world to the new world. Yeah, and the good news about that is that'll work for Chrome, it'll work for Mac, it'll work for, so we utilize the same technology, especially around the CDN stuff. So if you wasn't aware of that, useful to know. And then Chrome I kind of touched on, but there are some videos I could show you later on. We haven't got time now, but the point is you get it out the box, same look and feel, you log on, and then as soon as you log on, you're enrolled automatically and all the policy starts coming down. And of course, the good news about Chrome is there's a Chrome client for Horizon. So what we're starting to see is people that are saying, well, I still want legacy applications or potential core Win32 line of business apps, but I can't run them on a Chrome, so I'm going to use the Horizon client, manage all the local apps, and then have Horizon client to get the Windows apps as well. So we're really starting to see that, especially in education. Retail. Retail's the biggest one that I'm seeing for Chrome right now. Because the other thing is Windows embedded. A lot of people are starting to look at, what about all my point-of-sale devices? How do I change them? And maybe a cheap Chrome-type OS. I say cheap. Depends on your term of cheap and what your deal is with your hardware supplier. But the point being here is it's potentially a lower-end device that you don't have to manage in the same way. Anybody seeing that? No? Okay. All right, so I'm conscious that I'm massively overrunning here. I say that, only probably about 5 minutes. But so I think I've got 2 or 3 left, so we'll keep it nice and short and sweet. So I'm guessing everybody knows Horizon. Who doesn't know Horizon at this point? Has anybody not seen Horizon? I'm hoping you wouldn't be here if you haven't seen it. So this is a kind of a refresher. All I wanted to really talk to you about is the constant discussions that everybody in the market always has about, yeah, but your competitor has start menu integration, or they've got file association, or they've got USB redirection, or this thing doesn't work, or this weird and wonderful RS-232 peripheral device that I've had in the bank for 17 years doesn't, you know, right? So this is what we've done in literally the last 9 months. So where I'm trying to go with this is, Horizon is constantly being developed, because a lot of people think, you're putting all this effort into Workspace ONE, are you forgetting about Horizon? No. Actually, we're getting massive market gains across all the other competitors here, the other one, namely. And we're trying to fill in all those little things that have always been stoppers for people. Now, if you look at Horizon and you look at Citrix, sorry I said it, together, somebody's going to tell you, goes, but I've been doing this for ages, and it works, and it's just there, right? And then you've got pretty much everything that they've got, and I saw there's a protocol deep dive later on that I won't be around for, but I wanted to look at that because the old protocol war might come back up again. But ostensibly, it's kind of the same, isn't it? Am I not being fair to VMware on that one? They're very good products, both of them, are stable and have been around for a long time. Clearly, I love VMware, but if I'm a customer, where's the compelling event? Are you seeing that as well? You know, so I've got this stuff, it just works. Why change? Well, the reason why we're seeing customers change is all the other stuff I talked about, right? So they're like, well, it's not just about the VDI estate now, it's about the entire UC estate. And I want one platform. And yes, your stuff is kind of on par and better in some regards, and maybe vice versa, but I want the entire platform, so I'm going to put my bets on VMware, and that's what we're starting to see in the market. People that are looking not just at the desktop bit, but the entire stuff. And now they're saying, actually, you're the place to go. So I just wanted to give you a bit of context, because the Citrix thing always comes up. And of course, the other thing we did recently, we gave you choices. Something I never thought in my lifetime would happen. We now have Horizon on Azure. Right? And clearly there's some technical stuff around hypervisor choices at that point, which for some people in VMware was a little bit weird, right? You run your stuff on another hypervisor, you know. But yes, this does. Horizon works on Azure on Hyper-V, but only around apps, and there's some specific reasons on that we can go into later on. Now, do you remember I mentioned earlier that I said that I wake up in the morning, and then the first thing I do is look at my phone? Well, everything come across snack, dine, cook? This is quite a nice little analogy I use. So when I get up, I kind of snack on my phone. I quickly look at my emails, and I work out whether I delete them quickly, where I reply, and if I reply in the morning, it's normally a one-word answer, like no, yes, approved, or something. But basically, I snack, yeah? And if it's a bit more interesting, I normally go to a bigger format, like an iPad or a bigger tab or something, and I can consume it. So I like to call that snack, dine. I'm dining on information. And if I want to reply, i.e. I compose something, I normally go to a bigger format, because I'm from that generation, and I cook. So we call it the snack, dine, cook. Anybody see that? Is this how you work? Right? You snack on information, you dine when you want to properly consume it, and when you want to reply, you cook. So where I'm going with this one is we think that we can change that whole thing, because actually that's something that a lot of old people do. I say old, but seasoned, well-experienced veterans. Let's put it that way. Now, I was on a train the other day, and somebody behind me of a very half the age, minus 5 years, let's put it that way, he was like this. Now, I thought that was me and how I used to do Street Fighter back in the day, but apparently it wasn't. He was actually using Instagram, Snapchat, all things I'm clearly not used to. But the idea there was this, these guys don't need to potentially go to that. We've got a whole generation of people coming in and a mindset where they don't necessarily need to cook. Or if they do cook, they cook while they're snacking. And that changes the whole dynamic. So where I'm going with this is productivity, as you knew it, was always about I need to do stuff on the big machine. That whole thing now can be done from your mobile, right? And that's the big change that we're seeing in the market. So we got a load of apps that help with that. Where I really wanted to go into is some integrations we've done. So the world is still email. I know we flirted with, is it another enterprise chat solution or collaboration? But really, most of the world still works on email. You agreed? So what we've done here is to say, well, common things that people do is things like Salesforce. But normally what you need to do is you need to leave your email, because there's something in there that says, please can you approve this Salesforce discount, as an example. They go into another solution, they have to log on, maybe they have to go on to two-factor authentication or whatever the policy is on another device so they can make some changes, and then they come back afterwards, all of which we think is quite cumbersome. What happens if you could just go into it and just go, right, okay, approve directly from inside email? Yeah? And the same with Concur. So my life is about signing off expenses. So one of the things we've done, I'm going to show you this in a second as well, is we've integrated Concur into email and also into what we call an approvals app. And the idea is that somebody who's constantly doing approving every day doesn't have to keep going to something else. They can just literally get out their phone, approve, swipe right, done, etc. So it's direct integration in. So we released Concur, Salesforce. I think Jira was another one we did. Some other SAP there, etc. But the idea is that we have this, we call it micro app architecture, where we have a released API and SDK that you can build directly into Boxer, or you can build your own app. And we've built our own application called vApprove. So all of my approvals, like HR, leavers, joiners, movers, distribution lists, expenses, etc. I go to one app and I just go yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and then I'm done. Which, when we did some we did some interviews with some customers, they reckoned on average, most people spent about an hour a day just in approvals and saying yes and no. So we just think that instant we've made a productivity saving. So there's a lot of work going on to that, which I think is quite cool, right? So, and that is where we think we start to go above and beyond the competition. Because everyone says, yeah, we can do unified endpoint management, the competition can do that. We're now starting to get all this intelligence into it as well. So, some release announcements. I've covered some of this. I mentioned Win 10, Mac OS. We've now got a native client coming from Mac OS. I say now. It's probably 2 or 3 weeks. Don't quote me or tweet on that, but roughly that time, hopefully before Christmas. App Express, I'm going to park for the time being. I've seen a lot of press on that recently. You can grab me unofficially later to give my own kind of opinions on that one. Office 365. We've done a simplified Office 365. We see everybody's going to Office 365, or at least most people are. Anybody already on it? Going that way? So we wanted to make sure that the whole way of getting Office 365, all the apps, how to secure them, deliver all the profiles, single sign-in, that's all built into the solution. It's a wizard-driven. If you've seen the AirWatch console, you'll know it's a lot simplified. And we did a lot of stuff around 7.3 on the horizon as well. And the big one, as I mentioned, was Horizon on Azure, which I really can't emphasize. I thought that would be, okay, we did it because the other lot did it. But actually, all our customers are quite interested in that. I've seen a lot of uptake on it. And then we talked about automation, which I alluded to before. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but you're going to see a new way of all of this stuff coming, new reports, new ways of doing enhanced security, performance monitoring on applications. We're starting to get into that world. So you may know that we bought a company called Apptelligent. Did anybody see that in the news? And if you don't know about Apptelligent, they are one of the leading market people that look after mobile apps intelligence. So they do things like crash dumps and logs shipping up to this cloud service. They understand how to actually see what's going on with a mobile app between when you move from one screen to another screen and you start to get performance on apps. We've taken that engine, which is a big, gigantic data analytics engine, because everyone needs one of those, right? Built into the solution, and a lot of what we're doing around this automation and this workflow piece is all based off of this acquisition. So we're keeping what we're doing with Apptelligent, but you're going to see all of that goodness come into the Workspace ONE platform, and that's what we announced at VMworld as well. Again, we can get into more detail later on about that. And then I'm just going to leave you with this final slide, which is what we did internal. So unfortunately, I say unfortunately, it depends on your level here, but I should update this. It's now, I think it's 27,000 users. I keep meaning to do it, but the numbers are still the same in terms of 3 months. We've got everybody on board in 3 months. And then they did, so this was actually a report done with our CIO. So they started to put some quantifiable savings. Now you may ask, why have we put VMware stuff up there? Well, I often get asked about references. Everyone says, who's done this all? I said, you know what, there aren't that many people, which shocks some people. Because it's so visionary and strategic that no one's implemented everything I've talked about. Lots of people are on the way, and we've got lots of examples where they've done integration with identity to mobile, or mobile is integrated with Horizon, but has everybody deployed the entire stack? No, because we keep releasing it. There's no way they could, and we'd be lying to you if that's the case. I'm not saying, by the way, we don't have any reference customers, so please don't tweet that. But I'm just saying that some of this new visionary stuff, we're ahead of the game. So guess what we do? We test it internally. So what we've done now is we've got a group of people internally in VMware who can come and talk to everybody and say, this is what we did. This is the lessons that we learned internally. We'll help you as part of that. And some of the savings we did, because we put a business case up, it was around productivity savings, password resets, single sign-on, provisioning of laptops has gone down now in terms of how we do that, the time taken for IT. So there's a lot of things that we put into the mix, and you've got some high-level kind of cost savings that we made. So, but and the reason I put that out there is we always get asked about the references. We've got loads of references on Horizon, got loads of references on AirWatch, and on all the products. Together, we've got some good ones, but the entire stack, not so many for obvious reasons. Because if we did, we'd need a new vision, right? With new products. So it's always that age-old question. But yeah, I just thought I'd leave you with that one. So about 5 minutes, I think, 10 minutes over, but gives you a flavour of where we're going. Hopefully it kind of sets the scene. I know that these guys are going to go into a lot more detail. Like I say, I'm around probably to about 12-ish, 1-ish, I think. So happy to go into a lot more detail, and if you're really lucky, I might accidentally release some more roadmap type stuff if you come and grab me. So yeah. I don't know if we've got time to take any live questions now, Ton. But I'm happy to hang around on stage for that. If not, then I'll let Ton introduce a new one. Yeah? No, thank you. Thank you, everyone.